Imagine this: a family that was once united in a shared belief, bound by love, faith, and the idea of one man balancing the lives of four women, living under one roof. But then, slowly, like cracks in an old foundation, everything begins to crumble. What was once a seemingly harmonious polygamous family begins to fall apart in the most dramatic way possible. It's the story of betrayal, heartbreak, and the emotional toll of one man's decisions. Cody Brown, the patriarch of the Sister Wives family, once had it all: multiple wives, a sprawling family, a life built on his own terms. But in the end, his choices not only shattered his relationships, they tore his entire family apart. The truth is, Cody's shift in priorities wasn't just a small personal change. It was a ticking time bomb for his marriages. From a man who was once deeply committed to the idea of polygamy, Cody's transition into a monogamous relationship with Robin would have devastating consequences for his first three wives: Mary, Janelle, and Christine. Their trust was broken, their emotional needs ignored, and the deep-rooted foundation they built together slowly crumbled under the weight of Cody's shifting attention and loyalties. Today, we're diving into the story of the Brown family's dramatic unraveling, the love, the betrayal, and the decisions that led to the breakdown of a once strong polygamous family. It's a tale of changing priorities, the fight for independence, and the pain of watching a family torn apart by a single man's choices. Cody Brown, his four wives, Mary, Janelle, Christine, and Robin, are at the heart of this story. A man who promised equality and shared love now stands at the center of a fractured family, where loyalty and emotional connection are on the line. So grab your popcorn, because the truth behind Cody's decisions is far more intense than anything we could have expected from a family that used to be all about unity. I'm so glad you're here with me today, friends. It's about to get real, and trust me, you don't want to miss this one. I'm Sophia, and this is TLC's Sister Wives Reality, your go-to place for all the latest, juiciest drama surrounding Cody and the Browns. If you're new here, welcome to the fam. We dive deep into everything that's happening with the Sister Wives crew, from the good, the bad, and yes, even the ugly moments that have fans talking. Now, if you haven't already, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the tea. And hey, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this drama. So make sure to drop your comments below, whether you're Team Cody or you're just feeling all kinds of sympathy for the wives. Let's chat. Trust me, this conversation is going to get heated, and I want to know what you think. All right, let's dive right back in, because the story we're unpacking today is going to leave you questioning everything about the Brown family. Now, let's move into something that really hit the fan: the Coyote Pass land dispute. This wasn't just about property, folks. Oh no, this was about power, loyalty, and what felt like a final nail in the coffin for Cody's fractured family. And you can't really talk about the downfall of the Brown family without bringing up this land drama. Let me set the stage for you. Remember when Cody and his wives decided to buy that piece of land in Flagstaff, Arizona? Initially, it was meant to symbolize unity, a fresh start, a place where the whole family could live close to each other and thrive together. But, if anything, it ended up being a massive symbol of everything that went wrong with their family dynamic. It was like their dreams for a big, happy family in one place quickly turned into a nightmare. The land was divided up, with each wife getting a piece for her own home. But as we know, things with Cody and his wives were never simple. This land split became a battleground, not just for real estate, but for emotional territory. Here's where things start to get really tricky. The land was divided up with one glaring issue: Cody's special treatment of Robin. Yup, Robin's plot of land ended up being much larger than the others, which sparked tension almost immediately. Mary, Janelle, and Christine were not happy about it. And let's be honest, it was clear that this wasn't about the land at all. It was about Cody's shifting priorities. Over time, it became more and more obvious that he was leaning heavily towards Robin, neglecting his other wives, and this just fueled the resentment between them. Now imagine this: you're one of Cody's ex-wives, and you're already struggling with the idea of your family falling apart. Then, you watch as Cody gives his new wife Robin a massive advantage in this whole land deal. It's not just about land, it's about loyalty, favoritism, and the fact that Cody's reasoning? Well, He argued that Robin was the one he had the most emotional connection with and that her needs were the most pressing. But here's the thing. It was all happening at the expense of his relationships with Mary, Janelle, and Christine, and it didn't sit well with any of them, especially when they felt that their own needs and desires were being pushed to the side. We saw it play out on the show, with Janelle and Christine getting more and more vocal about how unfair the whole situation was. There were arguments about how much land they were each getting and how Cody's decisions were essentially undermining everything they had worked for. The real issue wasn't even the land. It was the erosion of trust and the way Cody was putting his eggs all in one basket. And we saw the damage it did to the family as a whole. But here's the kicker. The land. This whole dispute that caused so much tension between Cody and his wives. It ended up being sold. Yup, after all the drama, all the conflict, the bitterness, it was sold for a profit. And guess who got to enjoy the benefits? Cody and Robin, of course. It was the ultimate betrayal to Mary, Janelle, and Christine. They'd put in the time, the emotional energy, and their hopes into this property, only for it to be sold off for a profit, with Cody and Robin getting the lion's share of the reward. Talk about salt in the wound. The land saga is so much more than just a property dispute. It represents everything that had gone wrong in the family dynamic. It highlights the tension, the alienation, and ultimately the breakdown of what was once a shared dream. Cody's favoritism toward Robin, the disregard for his other wives' needs, and the way his actions pushed the family apart were all wrapped up in this one moment of selling the land. And if you think that this land drama was the only thing breaking them apart, think again. This was just the tip of the iceberg. But honestly, the way it all unfolded just made it so clear. Cody's priorities had shifted, and his relationships with his first 3 wives were crumbling in front of our eyes. The land wasn't just a place to live, it was a metaphor for everything that was falling apart in his polygamous family. All right, buckle up because we're heading into some really emotional territory now. Cody's shift from polygamy to monogamy, and I'm not gonna lie to you, this was heartbreaking to watch. The man who once vowed to be with multiple women, raising his 13 kids under the same roof, slowly turned his back on everything he had built. The family dynamic changed so drastically, and we all saw it unfold in front of our eyes. So let's rewind a little bit. For years, we watched Cody navigate life with 4 wives, Mary, Janelle, Christine, and Robin. It was complicated, chaotic, but somehow they made it work. Or, at least, that's what we were led to believe. But when the cracks started showing, the walls began to crumble one by one. By the time we hit the later seasons of Sister Wives, it became clear. Cody was done with polygamy, at least in the way it had been. The first major hint came when he divorced Mary, his first wife. That one stung, didn't it? Mary had been the original wife, the one he had the most history with, and yet she was the first to get cut out. Cody and Mary's relationship had been in trouble for a while, especially after the catfishing scandal. But still, it felt like a gut punch to see her officially let go. And then there was Janelle. Janelle, who had spent decades with Cody and was truly one of the most patient and loyal partners we've ever seen on the show. But Cody started distancing himself more and more. He barely spent time with her, and you could see it in the way Janelle's frustrations started boiling over. When you've been in a relationship that long and your partner starts pulling away emotionally, it's painful, and Janelle felt it. So we weren't too surprised when she, too, moved away from Cody emotionally. But what really shocked everyone was the breakdown with Christine. Christine and Cody's marriage was always complicated, but there was a deep emotional connection there. It felt like if anyone could survive this shift, it would be Christine. But as Cody's focus increasingly narrowed on Robin, Christine started realizing something we'd all seen coming. She was no longer needed. She wasn't just being neglected. She was being replaced. Christine was one of the strongest voices against Cody's changes. She saw the writing on the wall long before the others. She even made it clear that she was done with the whole idea of polygamy. And honestly, who could blame her? Cody wasn't giving her the love and attention she deserved, and instead, he was pouring all his energy into Robin. So Christine made the boldest move of all. She decided to leave Cody. Now, that wasn't just a breakup. It was a breakdown of everything they had once stood for. Watching her walk away was tough for everyone. But it was also incredibly empowering to see her choose her own happiness. She had been holding on for so long, hoping that Cody would come around, But once she realized that the man she loved had completely shifted his priorities, she chose herself. And then there was Robin. Robin, the woman who had slowly become the center of Cody's world. She had been there from the beginning, but it wasn't until the other wives started pulling away that Cody's obsession with her became undeniable. Robin was no longer just one of his wives. She was the wife. She was his only focus, and the show began to reflect that more and more. At the time, some fans defended Robin, arguing that she had no control over Cody's decisions. But let's be real for a second. There's no way Robin didn't know what was going on. Cody was spending almost all his time with her. He was emotionally and physically available only to her. It wasn't just a relationship anymore. It was a full-blown monogamous bond between Cody and Robin, and everyone else was slowly pushed out. It was also interesting to see how Cody and Robin's relationship evolved over time. At first, it felt like they were the perfect match, both deeply invested in the idea of polygamy and the family they'd built. But as the years went by and Cody started divorcing his other wives, it became more clear that this wasn't about family anymore. It was about Cody's need for control, validation, and a fresh start. Robin had once been a part of the collective, a wife in a polygamous family. But as Cody's obsession grew, she became the one. The transition from polygamy to monogamy wasn't just about a marriage. Cody had emotionally abandoned his whole family for Robin. And if you were Mary, Janelle, or Christine, that was hard to swallow. Now, don't get me wrong, Robin didn't ask for the rest of the family to fall apart. But once it started happening, it was clear where Cody's heart and mind were. It felt like he was leaving his past behind. And that's exactly what he did. When Cody officially divorced his other wives, he made it clear to everyone he was now living a monogamous lifestyle with Robin. But let me tell you, this wasn't just a, hey, I'm leaving polygamy behind and starting over moment. No. This was a revolution in Cody's life. A man who had once prided himself on his ability to juggle 4 wives and maintain a united family was now isolating himself and his remaining relationship with Robin. It was a clear shift and a stark contrast to everything he had once said about his values and family. And I don't know about you, but watching this transformation was tough. I mean, I get it. People change. Relationships evolve. But to see Cody leave behind so much, to hurt so many people in the process, just felt like a betrayal on so many levels. It wasn't just about polygamy anymore. It was about Cody prioritizing his own needs to the detriment of his entire family. What do you think, though? Was Cody's transition to monogamy inevitable? Or did he just give up on something that could have worked if he had tried harder? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, because this one is a heavy topic. All right, my friends, if you thought the emotional drama of the family breakdown was intense, brace yourselves because we're about to dive into another major storm: money. Yep, the financial struggles that Cody and Robin faced during this transition were nothing short of jaw-dropping. And of course, the public scrutiny that came with their lavish lifestyle when they were claiming financial hardship had everyone raising their eyebrows. Let's start with the basics. After Cody's family splintered, it wasn't just a personal mess, it became a financial one too. With all those kids, child support payments, and the mounting costs of trying to keep up appearances, Cody's finances were in turmoil. For years, we heard about the financial strain that Cody and his wives were under. From living in different homes to trying to make things work while juggling multiple households, the financial burden was real. But then, something started to feel off. As the show progressed, Cody and Robin's lifestyle became more and more extravagant. And I'm not talking about the occasional splurge. We're talking big purchases, expensive hobbies, and a life that seemed at odds with their claims of struggling to get by. Let's talk about that infamous $2.1 million house, for example. I mean, really? While fans were watching them claim financial difficulties, there they were, making huge purchases. It felt like a slap in the face to everyone who was following their struggles. To be fair, yes, Cody did try to downplay the whole thing. He and Robin explained it as a necessary investment for their future. But, come on. If you've been watching the show for any length of time, you know that the Browns have never been shy about showing off their extravagant lifestyle. The constant updates about the home and their new dream house seemed to rub people the wrong way, especially considering the financial claims they had been making. Were they really struggling, or were they just bad with money? It's hard to say for sure, but the optics weren't great. And then there's Robin. Robin's hobbies became an issue for fans too. The woman had a deep passion for doll collecting, and if you've watched the show, you know that she would spend a ridiculous amount of money on them. I mean, who needs that many dolls? People were already questioning the Browns' finances, and then you have Robin buying thousands of dollars worth of collectibles. And let's not forget the constant tension surrounding the family's land issues, the Coyote Pass land to be specific. Now, that land was supposed to be the family's future, right? A place where they could all build their dream homes and live together in harmony, like they had always hoped. But what happened? Well, let's just say the land became a metaphor for the entire breakdown of the family. Cody's decision to divide the property in a way that heavily favored Robin caused major tension with his other wives. It wasn't just a land dispute, it was a representation of the imbalance that was already starting to grow between Cody and his other wives. They felt betrayed. And to be honest, I don't blame them. The land was supposed to be a shared dream, but it turned into a wedge that pushed them all further apart. Eventually, the land was sold for a significant profit. Profit that, surprise, surprise, benefited Cody and Robin, while the others were left trying to pick up the pieces. It felt like yet another example of Cody prioritizing Robin over the rest of his family. The land, just like everything else, became a symbol of the growing chasm between Cody and his ex-wives. What was supposed to be a symbol of unity had become yet another point of division. And that brings us to the public perception of Cody and Robin's situation. The criticism was relentless. Fans couldn't help but notice the hypocrisy. On one hand, we had Cody and Robin claiming they were struggling to make ends meet, while on the other hand, they were showing off their lavish home and indulging in expensive hobbies. Fans began to question everything about the Browns. Was Cody really as financially strapped as he claimed? Was Robin's doll collection more important than the well-being of the family? And let's not forget the ongoing issues with the other wives. Mary, Janelle, and Christine were left to fend for themselves emotionally, financially, and socially, while Cody and Robin seemed to be living their best life on the outside. It's almost as if they were living in their own bubble, cut off from the reality of the struggles that the rest of the family was facing. For fans, it was hard to watch the Browns' wealth disparities play out so openly. Fans felt betrayed, not just by Cody's actions, but by the way the entire family dynamic had been altered for the sake of one person. The question started to rise. Was Cody only focused on himself, his own needs and his own desires, while leaving his other wives and children behind to pick up the pieces? As a viewer, you could almost feel the tension from the screen. The show was no longer about a family making it work. It became about Cody's personal journey towards self-preservation, all while trying to maintain a public image of a man struggling to hold everything together. But, as the seasons went on, it was clear that Cody wasn't just struggling financially, he was struggling emotionally too. And, of course, the critics didn't let up. People began to notice just how absent Cody was from his other children's lives. Sure, he would show up for the occasional family event or gathering, but as time went on, it became apparent that his involvement with his other kids had dwindled to almost nothing. Fans began to wonder, was Cody only truly invested in his own nuclear family with Robin? And if that was the case, where did that leave the other wives and children? The public scrutiny didn't stop there. Fans began to get real vocal on social media. Everyone had an opinion, and many were quick to call out Cody and Robin for their lack of transparency when it came to their finances. They saw the disconnect between what was being shown on screen and the narrative the Browns were presenting off-screen. It was frustrating for fans who had stuck with the show for so long, only to watch the family they had grown to love crumble in such a public way. And then there was the bigger question. What was left of Sister Wives at this point? The show had originally been about a unified family overcoming the difficulties of polygamy, but as Cody's transition to monogamy became more and more pronounced, it felt like the foundation of the show had cracked beyond repair. The storylines became about individuals navigating their personal journeys, rather than a collective struggle to hold the family together, and with the growing public criticism, it felt like the end was near. So, I guess we all had to ask ourselves, could this family ever go back to the way it was? Or was the damage done for good? The tension between public appearances and real-life struggles had become too much to ignore. What do you think? Did Cody and Robin's lavish lifestyle during a time of supposed financial hardship make you question everything? Or do you think it was just a misunderstanding? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm so curious to hear what you all think. All right, now let's talk about one of the most crucial elements in this entire saga, public perception. It's one thing to watch a family fall apart behind closed doors, but when that drama plays out on TV and the world gets to see it, that's a whole different level of emotional turmoil. And for Cody, Robin, and the rest of the family, the public's judgment was a constant presence. Cody's public persona has always been tricky to pin down. On the one hand, we've seen him as the loving, family-oriented man trying to juggle multiple wives and 18 kids. Yes, 18. While on the other hand, we've also seen a man who has repeatedly made decisions that hurt the people closest to him. At the start of Sister Wives, viewers were drawn to Cody's ability to balance a large family in a seemingly unorthodox way. It was intriguing to see how they managed to work through the emotional and logistical challenges of polygamy. But as time went on, Cody's personality started to shift, especially when it became clear that his priorities were changing. Let's not forget that Cody's decision to focus more on Robin was not exactly a secret. The signs were there long before he officially made the transition to monogamy. Mary, Janelle, and Christine started to notice the shift, and viewers could feel it too. It wasn't just the way he spoke to them or interacted with them. It was the absence that spoke volumes. While he'd been physically and emotionally present for so long, suddenly his energy seemed to drain out of the other wives' lives. They were no longer Cody's top priority, and if you're a viewer who's been watching for a while, you felt that. We've all seen those awkward moments, Cody just not being there when his wives need him. His distancing from Mary and Janelle in particular was obvious, but what made it sting even more was how openly his relationship with Robin seemed to grow stronger. And when I say stronger, I mean it in every sense of the word. It wasn't just about romantic love, it was about emotional support, attention, and investment. While Mary, Janelle, and Christine were left picking up the pieces of their broken marriages, Cody was all in with Robin. The public can see it too. The way they presented themselves in public, together, happy, and seemingly in tune with each other, only heightened the tension that fans were already sensing. Now, let's talk about the other wives, because their journeys were just as important, if not more so, than Cody and Robin's. Let's start with Christine. Her journey was one of gradual disillusionment, and I think for a lot of fans it was painful to watch. From the very beginning, Christine had been an emotional powerhouse in the family. She was loving, patient, and invested in maintaining a sense of unity within the group. But over the years, we saw her slowly come to terms with the fact that Cody wasn't the man he had once been. At least not to her. Her decision to finally leave Cody was huge, and it sent shockwaves through both the family and the fan base. Fans who had once rooted for Christine began to sympathize with her even more. She wasn't just walking away from a man, she was walking away from a lifetime of being emotionally neglected. Her exit was painful, but it also felt like the most honest thing she could do for herself. And honestly, who could blame her? Now, compare that with Mary. Mary's situation is a little more complicated. For years, Mary's story was centered around her relationship with Cody and the hope that their marriage could be saved. But as we all know, that didn't pan out. Mary was emotionally blocked off from Cody in a way that was almost palpable to the audience. She struggled with trust issues, the catfishing scandal, and a series of emotional betrayals that just chipped away at her spirit. For a long time, it seemed like she was hanging on to something that had already fallen apart years ago, but the emotional toll on her was devastating, and we could all see it. Her marriage was unraveling while Cody was building something new with Robin. The way Mary was treated by Cody over time became harder and harder to ignore. It was almost like she had become an afterthought in the relationship, and for fans, that became even more apparent when she began to take steps toward independence, moving to Utah and trying to start over. Watching Mary go from a woman desperately trying to hold her family together to someone who was finally standing on her own was